They said I was just a burden. Too old, too slow, too poor. But sometimes, the ones you ignore are the ones who end up saving you. My name is Mrs. Eleanor Hart. I've lived on the same street for 42 years, long enough to watch children grow up, houses change, and laughter fade. When my husband passed away, the world didn't stop, but the people around me did. The neighbors who used to wave from their gardens now avoided my eyes. The kids who once played in my yard ran past like I didn't exist. I didn't blame them. I knew what they saw, an old woman in a faded shawl, carrying groceries in trembling hands. No one looks twice at someone who moves slowly. Still, every morning, I swept my porch and smiled at everyone who walked by. And every evening, I lit a candle for my husband and whispered, "Maybe kindness still lives here somewhere." One winter morning, I slipped on the icy sidewalk while taking out the trash. My bag burst open, and apples rolled into the street. Cars passed. People stared. No one stopped. Then I saw Mr. Grant, the new neighbor, a wealthy man with a shiny car and a sharper attitude. He looked right at me, then turned away. I gathered what I could, brushing off the ice from my hands. The sting wasn't just from the cold, it was from being seen and still invisible. When I got home, I sat by the window and watched the lights from every house flicker on, warm glows I wasn't invited into. That night, I promised myself something. I'll never stop being kind, even to those who forget what kindness looks like. And life must have been listening. Because soon, fate would give me a chance to prove that promise. It wouldn't come as a gift. It would come as a storm. When the storm hit our town, everyone stayed inside, except me. And that night, their lives depended on it. They ignored me in daylight. But when darkness came, their lives quietly slipped into my hands. The storm rolled in without warning. The afternoon sky turned from pale gray to bruised purple, the kind of sky that makes birds fly low and children run inside. The wind howled around the houses like something angry and ancient. People rushed home, slamming doors, drawing curtains, locking themselves away from the world. And I stood on my porch, watching. My shawl whipped around my shoulders as I struggled to tie it tight. I had weathered a lot in 81 years, storms, winters, heartbreak, but this wind felt different. It rattled windows. It shook streetlights. It sounded hungry. Across the street, I saw the Grant's family, Mr. Grant, his wife, and their teenage son, hurriedly carrying bags inside. They didn't look at me. They never did. Further down the road, the Martins pulled into their driveway, arguing loudly as they spilled out of the car. Even their dog barked anxiously. But no one offered a hand or a greeting. I whispered to myself, "Everyone is afraid tonight." And fear, I knew, makes people forget kindness. As the storm grew louder, I lit the lantern my husband had given me decades ago, its warm glow steady against the shaking walls. I placed it by the window, just like he used to do during emergencies. He used to say, "Someone out there might need a light." By nightfall, the storm had devoured the entire town. Lightning flashed like broken glass. Thunder cracked so violently that it felt like the sky itself was splitting open. Then, suddenly, everything went dark. The entire street plunged into blackout. No heaters. No lights. No phones charging. Just the storm's roar and terrified silence behind every window. I wrapped myself in my coat, grabbed my lantern, and stepped outside. The cold rain stung my cheeks, but I kept going. Someone needed help. I didn't know who yet, but I felt it in my bones. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement near the Grant's house. A window had shattered from the force of the wind. The Grant's teenage son, Oliver, was trying to push a wooden board over it, rain pouring down his face, hands shaking with cold and fear. He slipped. He screamed. But no one inside heard him over the storm. Except me. Without thinking, I rushed through the rain and grabbed his arm before he fell. He looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. The same boy who never once helped me carry my groceries. Mrs. Hart. he gasped. I smiled gently, steadying him. Hold on, dear. I've got you. In that moment, his fear became my mission. But Oliver wasn't the only one in danger that night. I didn't know it then, but I would end up saving the entire street. I thought saving one boy was enough, but fate had other plans for me that night. The rain hammered so loudly it felt like the sky was falling apart. Oliver clung to my arm as we hurried back to his porch, both of us drenched and shivering. He couldn't stop shaking, from cold or fear, I couldn't tell. When his parents opened the door, their eyes widened in shock. Oliver, what happened? Mrs. Grant cried. He almost fell, I said softly. The window shattered. Before I could finish, Mr. Grant stepped forward and pulled his son inside. But instead of thanking me, he simply said, "You shouldn't be out here at your age. Go home, Mrs. Hart." His tone wasn't cruel. It was dismissive. As if my presence was an inconvenience. As if saving his son was expected. I nodded politely and walked away, lantern trembling in my hand. But just as I reached my porch, I heard something. Screaming. High-pitched. Terrified. Desperate. It came from the Martins' house 2 doors down. Without hesitation, I rushed toward it, the storm nearly knocking me off my feet. Mud splashed up my skirt, wind tore at my shawl, but I kept going. Inside their house, chaos reigned. Water was flooding the living room. The front door had blown off its hinges. Mrs. Martin was clutching her toddler, crying. Mr. Martin was desperately trying to push a heavy cabinet against the broken doorway. "Please!" Mrs. Martin screamed when she saw me. "Help us!" I didn't stop to think. I placed my lantern on the floor, kicked off my wet shoes, and helped Mr. Martin brace the door. Together, we pushed until our arms shook. Finally, the wind eased and the door stayed shut. The Martins gasped for breath. Mrs. Martin collapsed on the sofa, sobbing, her baby wailing in her arms. "Thank you," Mr. Martin whispered. His voice broke. His eyes shined, not with pride, but with humility. For the first time since they moved in, he looked at me. Really looked at me. "You saved us." I smiled softly. Tonight, we all save each other. But the night wasn't done with us. Just as I picked up my lantern again, a deep rumble shook the entire street. A transformer exploded somewhere nearby. A loud, violent blast that lit the sky blue for a moment. Then came the smell of smoke. Thick, sharp, dangerous. A fire had started. I didn't know where it was coming from, but I knew what fire does in storms like this. It spreads. Fast. I clutched my lantern, heart pounding, and whispered, "Please, don't let it be too late." When I found where the fire started, I froze. Because inside that house were the very people who had hurt me the most. It's easy to be kind to those who love you, but real kindness is tested in front of those who hurt you. The smell of smoke grew thicker as I rushed through the storm, lantern swinging wildly from my trembling hand. Every gust of wind felt like it was pushing me back, but something inside me kept pushing forward. The fire wasn't small. I could see flickering orange through the rain. When I turned the corner, my heart stopped. It was the Grants' house. The very people who never helped me. The very family who ignored me every day. The man who pulled Oliver inside without thanking me. Their kitchen window glowed bright with flame. I ran. My old legs burned, my breath cracked, but I ran harder than I had in years. Inside the house, chaos echoed. Screaming. Coughing. Furniture crashing. I pushed the door open, and thick smoke swallowed me instantly. It clawed at my lungs, burned my eyes, made it hard to think. But I moved anyway. Through the haze, I found Oliver first, curled in the hallway, coughing violently. Mrs. Hart, help, he choked out. I pulled my shawl over his mouth and lifted him as best I could. "Stay with me, dear. Don't you let go." Behind us, flames spit and crawled across the ceiling. "Mom and Dad," Oliver gasped. They're in the kitchen. My heart lurched. The kitchen was where the fire started. It was the most dangerous place. But I couldn't leave them. Even after everything, their coldness, their pride, their silence, I couldn't let them die. I dragged Oliver to the front door, where Mr. Martin rushed over and carried him outside. "I'll get him help," he shouted. I nodded. Then I went back in. Into the fire. Into the heat. Into the very heart of danger. The kitchen crackled violently, flames leaping like wild animals. Through the smoke, I saw Sil Hoots, Mr. and Mrs. Grant, trapped behind a collapsed shelf. They were coughing, terrified, helpless. Their eyes widened when they saw me, disbelief carved into their faces. "Mrs. Hart." Mrs. Grant cried. "Please, please help us." I grabbed a chair and smashed the fallen wood until it broke apart. My hands bled, my skin burned, my legs shook. But I kept going. I pulled them both up, one arm around each of them. Their weight nearly forced me to my knees, but I refused to fall. Step by step, breath by breath, we moved through the burning kitchen toward the faint glow of the open door. By the time we stumbled outside, the neighbors had gathered in the rain. Some gasped, some cried, all stared, but none more than Mr. Grant. He fell to his knees in front of me, soaked, trembling, voice cracking. "You saved my family. After everything we did to you. Why?" My breathing was weak, but my answer was strong. Because kindness isn't given to those who deserve it. It's given by those who carry it. The storm finally began to die. But on that street, a different kind of storm had just ended. But the night wasn't over. When the fire trucks left, the neighbors gathered around me, and what they said next brought me to tears. I saved their lives, but I wasn't prepared for what they said next. The fire trucks finally left. What remained was smoke rising into the night sky, the bitter smell of burnt wood, and a stunned silence across the street. Neighbors who had never spoken to me suddenly stood in a circle around me. Some held umbrellas. Some held blankets. Some just held tears in their eyes. Mrs. Grant, still shaking, stepped forward first. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You risked your life for us." I smiled softly. "My life isn't worth more than yours, dear. We all breathe the same air." She burst into tears. Mr. Grant looked shattered. The proud man who once couldn't meet my eyes now bowed his head low. "I judged you," he said quietly. "I dismissed you. I ignored you. And you still saved my family." His shoulders trembled as he covered his face. The neighbors whispered among themselves, some crying, some ashamed. Then a little voice spoke up. It was Emily, the small girl from next door. She held her mother's hand and stepped forward timidly. "My mommy says you saved everyone tonight." I kneeled slowly, my bones aching but my heart full. I did what anyone with a little love left would do. She hugged me, a simple, warm, innocent hug that broke every wall in the crowd. One by one, the neighbors approached me. "The Martins. We should have helped you when you fell last week. We're so sorry." "Emily's mother. You always smiled at us. We never even noticed." "A young couple. We never realized how alone you were." "Mr. Grant," still trembling, "you saved my son before you saved me. I'll never forget that." For years, I had lived on that street unnoticed. A ghost with a broom, a shadow carrying groceries, an old woman no one thought twice about. But tonight, they saw me. Not as someone small, not as someone weak, but as someone who chose kindness even when ignored. As the rain finally softened to a gentle drizzle, the entire neighborhood stood around me, not in judgment, but in love. Mrs. Martin wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. "Mrs. Hart, please, let us take care of you now." I looked around at their faces, tear-streaked, humbled, awakened. And for the first time in years, I felt less alone. But their apologies weren't the end. The very next morning, The whole neighborhood did something that left me speechless. After a lifetime of being invisible, I woke up to a street that finally saw me. The storm passed overnight, leaving the world washed clean. The sky was a pale blue, the kind that only appears after something fierce has been survived. I woke slowly, my old bones aching from the night before. I wrapped my shawl around my shoulders and opened the door. And froze. My front porch was full. Blankets. Food baskets. Handwritten notes. Flowers. Warm bread wrapped in cloth. Cans of soup. Even a new pair of shoes. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard footsteps. The neighbors were standing on the sidewalk, waiting quietly, shyly, as if the morning light itself had pushed them toward my home. Mrs. Grant stepped forward first. She held a small blue box between her hands like it was something precious. "We all talked last night," she said softly, "about how you've lived here alone, and how we never helped you. None of us." I opened my mouth to speak, but she gently shook her head. "Please, let us say this." Mr. Grant spoke next, his voice deeper, broken with guilt and gratitude. "You saved my son. You saved all of us. And we failed you. We want to change that." Behind him, the Martins stepped forward holding warm coats. "We noticed your shawl was torn," Mrs. Martin said. "We bought you a new one." The young couple from the corner came up with bags of groceries. Emily, the little girl, carried a jar of homemade cookies and whispered, "Mommy said you like cinnamon." I felt tears spill down my cheeks. Warm, overwhelming, unstoppable. "But why all this?" I asked in a trembling voice. And then something happened that took my breath away. Mr. Grant gently opened the blue box he was holding. Inside was a brand new house key, silver, shining, tied with a ribbon. "Your roof is damaged," he said. "Your electricity keeps failing. You shouldn't live alone anymore. Not after what you've done for us." Mrs. Grant took a deep breath. "So, we fixed it. Together. Your roof, your wiring, your heating, everything." I gasped. Last night they couldn't even look at me. Today, they rebuilt my home. Emily tugged on my hand. "You saved everyone," she said softly. "So now we want to save you." My heart broke open in the most beautiful way. For years, I had prayed for company, for kindness, for someone to look at me, really look. And here they were. A whole street full of hearts finally waking up. I hugged Emily tight, then looked at the neighbors surrounding me. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me." But the greatest gift wasn't my repaired home. It was what they revealed next, something that honored my husband's memory in a way I never expected. I thought the repaired house was the gift, but the real surprise was waiting inside. With the new key trembling in my hand, I stepped toward my home. The neighbors followed quietly behind me, like a gentle parade of newfound kindness. My front door swung open easily, smoother than it had in years. The moment I stepped inside, my breath caught. The house was warm, bright, alive. The broken heater was humming softly. Fresh paint covered the walls. The drafty windows had been fixed. My old rocking chair, my husband's favorite spot, sat polished by the fireplace. But what brought tears to my eyes wasn't the repairs. It was the wall. The neighbors had cleared a whole section of my living room wall and hung a beautifully framed picture of my husband, the one I thought I'd lost years ago in the attic leak. Underneath the photo was a wooden plaque. "In honor of George and Eleanor Hart, the heart of our street." I covered my mouth with my hands. Mrs. Grant stepped beside me, tears slipping down her face. "Your husband served this community for decades. We didn't know until Oliver did some research last night. He was a good man." I nodded, my voice breaking. "He was the kindest soul I ever knew," Mr. Martin added softly. "And you carried that kindness long after he was gone." Emily placed a small candle on the table. We lit a candle because you always put one in your window, she said. Now we'll do it too, so no one feels alone on this street again. I turned around, and every neighbor, every single one, held a candle. Soft little flames glowing like a constellation brought down to earth. My heart felt like it was glowing too. I whispered, "George, we're home again." Then something beautiful happened. One by one, each neighbor stepped forward, hugging me, thanking me, apologizing, promising to be better. When the last candle was lit on my windowsill, the entire street shone with warm, golden lights. A symbol, a promise, a new beginning. For years, I had lived unnoticed, unseen, unappreciated. But now, I wasn't just the old woman at the end of the street. I was part of a family again. The storm that once scared everyone had done something miraculous. It broke open their hearts. And in the glow of those candles, I finally understood. Kindness may be ignored. Kindness may be mocked. But kindness is never wasted. Because someday, the world always finds its way back to the light you left behind. She was invisible to them, until the night she saved them. And in saving them, she lit a light that would never go out again. Red Heart.